Thank you for staying with News Central. Now, the United States Secretary General Antony Blinken on Monday said that the U.S. is committed to deeper relations with Africa despite global crisis as he opened a four-country tour of the continent. Blinken is touring four democracies on the Atlantic coast, Cape Verde, Ivory Coast, Nigeria and Angola, even as security in these countries deteriorates. Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, Phee, told a media briefing that Blinken will demonstrate and access follow-through on commitments made during the December 2022 U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. Blinken's agenda will focus heavily on security issues affecting the Sahel and coastal West Africa and Nigeria, and as well as ongoing efforts to reduce tensions in eastern Congo, which will be a topic of discussion in Angola. To discuss Blinken's week-long visit on one slot is Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst, joining us from Texas, U.S. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin with the presser that was issued before he came to Africa. Asked if countering China's influence on the continent would be a major issue. Molly, that's the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, said there is more, this is rather more of a preoccupation of the media. According to her, if China didn't exist, America will still be fully engaged in Africa. She says Africa is important for its own sake and it's important for American interest. I want your response to that and the general purpose of this visit. Is she right? Is the media too preoccupied with China and America has grand agendas?
You know, for anybody who's probably not familiar with the American interest in Africa, it didn't start today. If you read the book Squadron Africa, that was an 1847 effort, the U.S. Government made with their Navy to stop slave trade. And that led to the formation of the country Liberia. The Squadron Africa was 1843, and then Liberia was formed in 1847. And so if you do that math, between 1843, when there was a concerted effort, U.S. government to do something in Africa to them, China wasn't even in the picture. And then 1885, you had the Scramble for Africa that led also the partitioning of Africa by the colonial people, especially the European part of it. So when you have an American government official visiting Africa and there's this undue excitement, I'm always saying, do we track the promises and then the pledges and what actually got delivered? Is it because the Africans don't know how to access the resources, or they have surrendered to where they now think that somebody has to come from China or Russia or America in order for them to realize their own responsibility to their own national interest? So, this idea of let's counter China, are we trying to counter China because, China is doing work in Africa? I mean, you look at the China presence in Africa, it still has not amounted to anything significant. The per capita income that is the measure of growth and economic development in all these countries has not spiked because of China or because of America or because of any of these countries. Africans have to take responsibility, and then don't be these, I don't want to use the word, but it comes very handy. This prostitute that has no choice. Whomever shows up and give you something, you take. You lay down, they get what they want. We have to be very, you have to be very choosy who your partner is, who you get in bed with. You have to create this index of nations. If you don't fall into that index, we don't want you. That's why you have countries like India, flexing in Africa, Pakistanis, Lebanese, and all these other people. At the end of the day, these are sea countries. If you're a student in college or anywhere you're going to take a test, if you want to pass, or if you're not very assured of your passing, you want to copy from an A student, not a C student. China is a C country. China would not be where they are today without America. And then many Africans would like to come to America for education. When you get that education, why are you going to China to go do business? You should go to where you have for centuries an established presence. But instead, no, you want to go to China. The reason China is flexing their muscle in Africa because they have no rules. America is not going to do what China is doing, because America is not going to come in there and bribe anybody to do it.
So
Africans
basically, you said it is the media agenda. You're seconding that position. Did I get you right?
Yeah, this is the media thing. You know, they have to report on something.
Let's move away from that a little bit. My first few questions will be basically about the pre-media briefing for the visit. I understand that throughout the trip, the Secretary would highlight how the U.S. had accelerated U.S.-Africa partnership since the Leaders Summit in 2022, including in areas such as climate, food, and health security. What, in your view, will be some of the areas he might highlight? Are there any offshoot of that 2022 summit, to your knowledge, that is worth mentioning?
Well, I mean, 2022 is not too, I mean, that was almost 2 years ago. So the Africans that are being visited and being given and promised these things, what have they seen improve in their own individual life or in their own respective countries? I mean, that's the measure. It's not just, you know, having a trip and coming in there and everybody's excited, everybody gathered at the airport, has a photo shoot, and then the things go away. So my thing is that whether it's the president of America that is visiting or a higher-ranking cabinet level member, it still does not move the needle to where Africans needs to be. And that is because the Africans have sort of surrendered, thinking that, okay, until these foreigners come in and, you know, wave something in front of them, they're not going to realize their own potential and take charge to lead themselves to where they want to be. You know, nobody's going to do it for you until you do it for yourself. So I don't know what it is. I mean, if you look at the 2022 summit and then what was promised, let's do the number. Like we say in America, let's do the number. What has actually been delivered? Is it infrastructure? What infrastructure has been built? Because you can't build any significant infrastructure in that amount of time. Or is it money? You know, Vice President Kamala Harris was there and promised some billions. Has anybody received the money? No. So we have to get to where we begin to think, you know, these people probably have looked at us and think, you know, we're not serious. We get excited about nothing. You know, it's like forecast rain in the desert. Everybody comes out with a bucket, but the rain never comes because, you know what, the heat is too much and it goes back in the atmosphere. So you have to begin to get your own water. You have to begin to do your own internal issues to where you say, you know what, thank you. We're not just finding ourselves for the first time. We've known each other for a long time, but guess what? We haven't seen any significant benefit. So we're going to just do it ourselves. And even if we're failing, we're going to keep improving on our failure until we achieve the level of success we want.
All right. Let's look at what has been done. He's already in Africa. I want you to maybe highlight for us the importance or the significance of that port in Cape Verde. That's the port of pride there for Africa and trade generally. The curiosity lies in the fact that that was Blinken's first stop.
Well, I mean, it could be because of proximity, because if you take off from, Africa, America to Africa, Cape Verde is the closest to Africa, to America. So maybe he lands there and then he's going to go to the next stop, Ivory Coast, I guess, Nigeria, and then Angola. So that may just be a logical, movement, not because of any significance. If you ask many African, who are students of geography, how many of them will remember where Cape Verde is or the significance of its geographic location? So that is near here or there. He could have come to Nigeria first and go as many places as he want. But the point I'm trying to make is there are 54 African countries. It's not a monolithic continent where the culture and the expectations are the same. Language barrier, government structure, relationship with former colonial people. So the Africans haven't unified. They haven't recognized their own proximity and their own regional capacities and tie into that to do something for themselves. The Nigerian, the person who is in Nigeria, what is his interest in East Africa? What is your interest in South America? You keep talking with Africans, keep talking about this one Africa, one Africa. but it is as diverse and complicated and conflicted more than any other continent. But we keep hammering on that as if, oh, well, let's have one African president, or let's have one African, when Gaddafi was there, he was promoting this United something of Africa. It never worked, and it will never work. So what you have to do is go back to your own national interest. If Nigeria were to become the regional powerhouse, it can influence its neighbors. And then that influence can snowball to where it gathers momentum. But if you just loosely gather it, there's this thing in statistics say when the parts are weak, there's nothing is going to make the whole to be strong. There is no African country that is strong. We may think there are, but on the global stage, I don't know the African country that gets any reasonable respect. If you have to earn it, you don't have to beg for it. And the way you earn it is by the way you do things for your national country.
Are you quite sure when you say there is no African country that garners that much respect? That would be, what do you think, maybe a slap on the efforts being made by African leaders over the decades to try and elevate our representation across the world? And I mean, at some point you mentioned the scramble for Africa. You see these foreign bodies trying to connect with Africa. In the interim, we don't have a single representative for Africa, but would it not be unfair to say there is no African country that can hold its own, that is respected in the global community?
Well, I mean, I made a comment, and I stand by it. Just tell me what country it is. Is it the Nigerian president?
What about South Africa? What about
Well, South Africa has no standing. I mean, again, it's not doing your best. The thing is your best getting you the results you want? Everybody does their best. But the thing is, at the end of the day, what is the outcome? So name the African country that when they speak, the world really said, yes, this makes sense. Is it because they go to UN and get their 15 minutes of fame, or is it because they have all these summits? A whole bunch of them, go to like pupils. Their principal has called them to one classroom, and they all gather.
Let me just interject and try and bring us a bit closer to the subject again, and that has to do with the specific countries that the Secretary of State is visiting. How do they fit into the broader U.S. foreign policy objectives in Africa? Why these specific countries, in your opinion?
Okay, I mean, if you look at it, Cape Verde, I think they are French, Portuguese speaking. Okay, you go to Ivory Coast, that's French speaking, and then you come to Nigeria, that's English speaking, and then you round it up with Angola, which is again another Portuguese or French speaking kind of country. Maybe that's just a sprinkler thing. They just sprinkle this so that we have hit all these different former colonial nations and say, hey, we're making effort for Africa. That is neither here nor there. Again, after he leaves, who else may come? Biden said he was going to come. He hasn't come, and I don't think he's going to come because this is an election year, and he's not probably going to do a whole lot of international trips. So the thing is, I have no way to say this is why he's doing what he's doing. How many days is he going to be in Africa? Okay, 4 days or 5 days. By next week, he's going to be back. I mean, how much time does he really have when he visits this country? What is the discussion? Forgetting that he's a human being, he's going to have a jet lag. So when he gets in and spends a few hours with, have a photo op and they talk about things and they shuffle papers and maybe sign some agreement, he goes to sleep to catch the next flight to the next country. So again, I'm just saying that is all good. But anybody visiting your home when your home in disarray does not change the fact that you have to take responsibility to put your house in order.
There is talk that some of the focus will be on security. There is a chaotic climate when it comes to security in Africa. Do you think that, you don't seem to have a lot of optimism that his time will amount to much. But let's look at this specific area of security. Do you think that his conversation targeted for Angola might have any import on the situation in the Congo?
Okay, again, what is the security? Are we talking about internal security challenges in each country or regional security challenges? So what is he going to really do? For instance, let's look at Nigeria. Okay, Nigeria has had the issue of national security public safety along that line because of Boko Haram. So what is he going to come and do? To give Nigeria arms or give them policies on how to deal with this? And then you go to the Congo where you have had the Rwanda, DRC challenges that have been going on as long as it has. And then you go, you go to Ivory Coast. Most of the northern countries in Ivory Coast have, are French speaking that have decided to kick out France out of it. So what exactly is the security thing he's bringing? The question has to be specific. Are you coming to tell them how to do it, or are you coming with specific tools that they don't already have or never thought of, and now they're going to embrace it and implement it? So it's not just having these feel-good sort of programs or languages that everybody accepts. You have to be specific. Because
I do agree with you on that. There were a lot of flowery statements issued earlier about the positive side of Africa and not focusing on the negative side. But there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. But let me go back again a little to the earlier reference to the 4 countries that he will be visiting. Nigeria happens to be one of them. And again, referencing some strength in the continent. I want to ask you, honestly, what role, I understand he is now in the country, what role do you think he sees in Nigeria play as in regional security, rather, and stability for maybe the West African region or the entire continent?
Again, it's a meeting, and after the meeting, the agenda is done. We look at the outcome. So yes, he's in Nigeria. It's regional. In Nigeria is part of ECOWAS. So how influential is Nigeria? Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. So there's a significant amount of Nigerians having presence in most African countries. But being present doesn't really mean that you have presence. At the end of the day, the global international politics is about flexing muscles and flexing power and saying this is what we can do. Is it militarily that Nigeria is strong? Maybe to its neighboring countries they are. But internationally, are they rated as one of what? Or if the president of Nigeria speaks about this is what we want to do, how many people, how many other regional world leaders come in and say, yes, we're going to follow him? So these are the things. I'm not saying that Nigeria don't have any positive things. I'm just saying when you put it in the context of the global international play, Africa is still open to anybody who shows up.
All right, let me ask you in a specific way. What kind of conversation do you expect him to have now that he is in Nigeria? What do you maybe foresee to be in print tomorrow about his visit to Nigeria, if you were to predict?
I have no clue. I'm not privy to his agenda, but I'm glad that he's visiting. So my point is Nigeria has to say, okay, what are you here for? Is it Nigeria that invited him? Or is he the one that says, Nigeria, I'm coming, and Nigeria is out there waiting for him? So it depends. Again, who is the leader of Nigeria? It is what, President Tinubu. But let's not forget, the Secretary of State, the equivalent in Nigeria is what? A foreign minister. Tell me, can a Nigerian foreign minister come to America and have the kind of conversation America's Secretary of State will have? Heck no, it will not happen. So we are even breaching the protocol, welcoming somebody. He should be moved to go and see the foreign minister of Nigeria and let them have that conversation. And then there will be a report issued to President Tinubu, not him going straight to go talk to the African president, because no African foreign minister will come to America and have the dialogue that Americans can trust. So we have to start looking at how are you being packaged? How are you being rated? Regardless of what that is, Blinken is foreign minister for America. If he's going to another country, his equivalent rank member is the foreign minister, not the president.
Not to sound like I'm holding forth for anyone, but then again, this is America. We just talked earlier, you highlighted the history of how they have been for us here in Africa, how committed they have been in trying to assist with development. Yes, they played a role in causing the problem in the first instance, but don't you think that maybe there is something that can be accomplished with this visit in terms of trying to bring these countries together? Let's say these 4 countries that were mentioned, because there are issues happening there. Is there anything that you think can happen? The president, of course, seeing the Secretary of State, you think it's a letdown?
Yes, I'm saying it, and I want you to record it. It's a letdown. If I were to be the president of Nigeria, I will not. The only person that I would like to come and see me in Aso Rock would be a president of another country. If you're coming in lower than that, I'm going to find somebody in my cabinet level.
Well, is there anything to be lost? Is there anything to be lost when the president welcomes a foreign, a foreign dignitary like the U.S. Secretary of State? Is there anything that we lose from doing that?
You're not going to lose anything. In fact, you're going to get more respect. Because, you know, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. But if you don't do it, then America don't care. The way to deal with the American, I have lived here around for office, I served on boards and commissions, is have to stand up to them. You have to tell them, no, I'm not going to do it. But if you keep doing what they're telling you, look at what they have told to Israelis and Palestinians. Has it worked? Has it worked? So you come in there and they lecture you, they dictate to you, and they make you feel like you are nobody and you think you're getting something. You're not getting anything. I'm just saying a president equivalent level on international visit is another president. You should not let somebody lower than that come into you and go. In fact, you should even go to the airport. You send somebody there, pick him up and bring it to your office. But no welcoming at the airport because they will not do it for you. How many African presidents have ever received a reception at an Andrew Air Force Base when they come to see the President of America? We're no longer in the 18th century or 19th century. This is 21st century. We have gotten the same education. We have almost gotten the same exposure. Why are you lowering your own status? Why? It shouldn't be. I mean, when I hosted governors in my home, they wanted me to do outside of my home. I said, no, if you're not going to come to my home, I'm not hosting you. And they showed up.
All right, I'm trying to, you know, work through my head to see what you might have said that I might have missed in the course of this conversation about the gains of these visits for Africa. So in the absence of, so
no gain. I'm telling you, no gain. It's just a publicity stunt. It's good that he's
so what purpose then? If it is, every publicity stunt has an end goal. So what would be the end goal? Because remember, I started by asking you about China. Is it still a competition? And you agreed with Molly that no, that is not the case. The United States has since maybe some real interest in Africa. So what would be the end goal coming to Africa at this point in time?
I wish I could tell you, but I'm just one of those things. Maybe the secretary wants to say, hey, I'm wrapping up. Because again, you know, where we are in an election, nobody knows who's going to win. So this may be his last trip to say, hey, I've been to Africa. He put it in his resume. And when he leaves office, you know, which we hope this administration is going to be, then he say, oh, yeah, I've been over there, I've done all that. But my point is, trips are fine. Go do it. At the end of the day, the person that is being visited got to ask the question, what did I get out of this visit? What is Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Cape Verde, and Angola going to get out of it? What is Africa in general going to get out of this? I don't know. Maybe 6 months from now, we'll see the benefit, or immediately, or maybe right there now you see the benefit. But I'm just saying, all this visit to Africa, all this excitement about who comes to see Africa or who Africa goes to see in terms of summit, it's time to pull back. I mean, more than 60 years of independence for most African countries. Is it not more than 50 years and more than the saying that they fool at 40s, they fool forever? When do you have to retool your presence and your own appearance so that people will begin to respect you? That's what it's all about.
Well, I mean, again, I'm coming from a very layman's perspective when I ask you this. Partnerships cannot happen in a vacuum. People have to move. You have to go somewhere, strike up a conversation, and there will be a follow-up. So for the U.S. Secretary of State to visit these countries, there has to be an outcome, not just for the United States, but for the home country. So I would like you to maybe filter through and see if there is anything tangible from this visit to Africa for these 4 countries, if no other place, let's say Ivory Coast, for instance.
Again, you're asking me, you're asking a snake to give you some arms and legs, and the snake has none to give. The point I'm trying to make is, that partnerships, whether it is on a political thing, is a give and take. Okay, what is America getting and what is the other partner getting? Or if it's in business, it's a shared risk because it's a recognition of something, and then I want to partner with you in order to achieve the goal. So what I'm saying, can those goals be achieved without this undue publicity stunt that foreign people come in there and try to position Africa like, oh, this is a crying baby that cannot wipe the thing on their face. We're going to have to come over there and let them do it, or tell them how to do it. I'm just saying, at what point does it come where you said, I'm no longer going to do this? This is not that. It hasn't worked for me, and this is the only way it will work for me. And then when you say this is the only way it will work for you, maybe the person who's been visiting you all this time will now say, oh, sorry. Because Africa needs to also teach the world. Here is our own need, and this is how we want our own need to be taken care of or handled, as opposed to when they sit in Washington, D.C., or when they sit in, excuse me, my earpiece is gone, or when they sit in Buckingham Street, or wherever, Beijing, they come in and say, okay, this is what you guys do. And you just try to take it. Nobody say, this is what we want. If you're not going to do it along this line, maybe there's no need for a partnership.
I mean, Ejike, we definitely did invite you for your strong views, and we thank you for sharing them honestly with us on One Slot. Thank you, as always, for your time.
My 30-something years in America is not just present. I have presence, and I have been involved, and I recognize how the system works. So that's why I'm trying to impact with people. Don't do certain things just because everybody expects you to do. Sometimes you say no. America loves it when you say no to them, because that's when they begin to say, oh, okay, how do we make it happen? Thank you for having me, and the best of luck.
You too. And that's how we wrap it up in One Slot today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.